Hello, everyone. So today we are going to begin discussing some of the fundamentals of instruction. For those of you who watch my intro video, welcome back. For those who are new to the channel, I appreciate the views. Um, so I'm going to be going in, starting to talk about the fundamentals of instruction, which can be found here in the Airman Certification Standards for the Flight Instructor Certificate. So, um, as I said in my intro video, I'm training to be a flight instructor, and I'm using this channel to practice my teaching skills. Um, let's just kind of jump right into it here. We're going to be looking specifically the FOIs, Fundamentals of Instruction. Again, they're in Area of Operation 1. We'll start with task alpha, the effects of human behavior and communication on the learning process. Now, this is a pretty big topic, so we are going to only focus in on this first kind of top little chunk here. Definition of human behavior, the instructor-learner relationship, a little bit about motivation, human needs, and we'll round out the discussion with defense mechanisms. Also, good note, the source of this information is coming from the Aviation Instructor's Handbook. If you don't have a physical copy of the book, you can find a PDF of it on the FAA's website. They provide all of their handbooks for free, um, and you can access them via phone, tablet, or laptop. And I can provide a link to that list of handbooks specifically below, which includes the Aviation Instructor's Handbook. I just pointed to it. It's next to me, not in screen. Um, so let's begin here. So human behavior and communication. Why is that important? How does that affect the learning process? So learning what learning is a change of behavior as a result of experience. And in order to be able to be successful at helping bring about these changes, the instructor, me, I'm going to have to learn how and why people act the way they do. So if it doesn't make sense here, I say change in behavior. That's say you're flying Cherokee and you have a student that's flying 80 knots on final when they should be at 65 knots. They fly 80 knots, they float forever down the runway, and they land halfway or two-thirds of the way down the runway. Um, it's my job to be able to teach the student, hey, like, you need to be at 65 knots for this, and find ways to teach them that. So eventually, the student comes in at 65 knots, lands a lot shorter on the runway, and you know, has a safe landing. That would be a change of behavior. Why is this important? So just kind of generically, like you know, human behavior. Uh, the study of human behavior is our attempt to explain how and why humans function the way they do. Um, Human behavior is a result of our attempts to satisfy uh, needs. And we'll get into some of those needs a little bit later on here, but that's kind of basically it. Human behavior is a lot of things. It's our needs, it's our personalities, it's our motivation, emotions, how we communicate with others, our age, our ego. It's a lot. And all of those things come together to affect the learning process. Um, so in the instructor student role, you've got the instructor student or the instructor learning role. Every student is different. They have different goals, they have different learning styles, which means I'm going to have to be able to adjust my teaching style to each individual student. Say you're a hands-on student. I can't fly well or do anything really unless I am actually doing it. Um, or you've got, the bookworm. I don't want to fly stalls and do slow flight unless I've read it in the manual first. Two very different approaches to things. So again, my job as the instructor to be able to help the learner is to be able to adapt the teaching style to them. Learners are also different too in the varieties of motivations that they have. Motivation, that's the reason why people act and behave in the ways they do. And motivation is the heart of our goals and our goal setting. Um, I've got this goal. I'm motivated to achieve it. I want to get my private pilot certificate so I can fly my friends and family on the weekends. Or I want to be an airline pilot someday, so I want to get my private instrument, commercial, CFI, multi engine. I want to do it all. Well, again, two very different students, two very different motivating reasons why they wanted to get into flight training. So again, I can't stress this enough. As the instructor, it's my job to adapt to each student. Um, so going a little bit more into motivation, there's positive motivation and there's like drops or negative motivation, if you will. So we'll start with the positives. So positive motivation, it's that promise of achievement or award or status or recognition. Um, think about the first solo. So that's a big accomplishment. A lot of people dream about the first solo, and there's nothing better than, you go out, you do your flight, and you come back. Your instructor's there. Maybe you have a friend that watched. You can go into the FBO, sign the prop, take a picture, or you cut the back of the shirt off, sign it, and then now you have a memento of that day. That is, that's an award. That's going to keep you motivated. That's going to motivate the student to go on to the next challenge. And those challenges, those new challenges, are another other ways to get students involved and motivated. So yes, you did your first solo, great. Now let's move on to cross countries. Let's learn about different types of airspace. Let's learn about towered airports, maybe if you're operating out of an uncontrolled airport. Um, you're going to new airports, just stuff like that. Um, Fun new challenges that keep the student engaged and going. Um, I kind of bled into maintaining motivation, so we won't, again, rewards like the shirt, like signing the prop, like passing that check ride. Um, those are ways to maintain that positive motivation. Now, kind of on the flip side, there's negative, like a negative motivation or drops in motivation. And that is bound to happen. The longer that you're in this, the longer you're going to, like, the more susceptible you're going to be to drops in motivation. And that usually shows up in the form of a learning plateau. Um, Learning how to land is pretty difficult. I sure as heck wasn't good at it when I started. And it was frustrating at times. And again, that's usually where students start to kind of have a drop off in motivation. So that initial excitement of yes, I'm flying, yes, I'm doing this and that. That initial excitement starts to wear off, and you really start to get into the thick of the training. Um, and yeah, you run into challenges like landing. Um, in order to be able to kind of combat that, to keep the student engaged, just remind them, say, hey, like, you're doing a good job, you've been doing a good job. Yes, this might be difficult now, but that doesn't mean you won't be able to achieve your goal. um, Remind them why they got into flight training to begin with. That's usually what's going to keep the students motivated and engaged and help them kind of dig out of that plateau, if you will. Sorry, I had to move the mic a little closer. I don't know if it's registering that well, so it might be a little quiet in that last section. Um, so anyway, so those are the drops in motivation. So kind of moving forward, I discussed these needs, like needs. What are those needs? Well, those are kind of our basic needs that we need to have satisfied before we're able to accomplish a goal or go after something, be able to concentrate on something. And those are Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you've got the base of the pyramid. There is our physiological needs. The physiological biological needs. So that's food, that's rest, that's protection from the elements. Um, if you are in a flight lesson and you really have to go to the bathroom, you're not going to be thinking about, you know, learning how to do the stall or learning how to do these turns around a point. Your mind's gonna be like, I need to get to the bathroom. I need to land. We gotta get out of here. Or if you're dehydrated, it's the same thing. You're gonna be focused solely on getting more water, and you're not going to be able to concentrate. It's going to prevent you from retaining the information. So that's physiological. The next one is safety and security. So that's that's the physical protection against danger or threats. And these threats they affect the learning process. They basically shut it down. The student will start to trigger their fight or flight response, and again, they're not going to be thinking about what they're doing. They're going to be thinking about surviving, being safe. Maybe that looks like an extremely gusty day. As a flight instructor, instead of going out when it's 25 gust and 30, maybe you say, hey student, let's do a ground lesson today. So that's a good way for me to help mitigate that. um, Belonging, a sense of love and belonging is what it is. um, so that's just making the student feel welcome. It's very intimidating going into a flight school for the first time. You walk in, you see students running around talking about whatever, using the jargon of aviation. You see the flight instructors in their nice clothes or polos, or they're wearing epaulets and stuff, and it's an intimidating environment to initially walk into. Um, so, how do you make a student feel welcome? Hey, call them by name. Hey, so and so, great to see you. Let's get started. Or, hey, so and so, I know the XYZ student, they're working on this too. Maybe you guys should get to know each other a little bit, and basically creating a community for that student to be a part of. And we're all part of the aviation community. Um, so that's love and belonging. The next one is esteem, and that's a two-parter here. Um, Esteem is feeling good about one's self, and there's internal and external esteem. So that internal esteem is um, our own self judgment, our own self image, our self esteem, um, and that shows itself in the form of our confidence level, our competence, our knowledge, and our sense of achievement. If we go and rock a written exam, we get 100% or something, like, yeah, we're going to feel really good about ourselves. Or, we're doing those landings that used to be difficult, and now we're starting to butter them a little bit. Um, you're gonna walk next day. You're gonna walk in the flight school. You might walk in with a little bit of a more of a puffed up chest. I've heard people even brag about some of their landings. We've all bragged about a landing or two here and there, but that's that self esteem. The next one, or sorry, self esteem is that internal. The next one is the external esteem. So what's that? That's status. That's recognition, appreciation. There's nothing better than hearing from your flight instructor, hey, like, you flew this approach really well today. We threw you under the hood today, and you tracked those radials out that VOR perfectly. It was like autopilot was doing the work, like that. And that really, that feeling of respect from your associates and your peers goes a long way in making a student feel good about where they are in their training and what they have to accomplish. The next one is the cognitive and aesthetic, another two-parter. So the cognitive is our need to know and our need to understand something. So think of the why. Like, why are we doing this? Why do we have to do slow flight? Um, well, you do slow flight as a way to prepare for when you fly in the traffic pattern when you get slow, or when you're doing that short field landing. Um, but yeah, so understanding that why, um, we really want to know how and why to do something. The other side of that is aesthetic, and again, that's fairly similar to love and belonging. Aesthetic, think about it's about our social needs. How do we do that? Again, bond with the student. Hey, so and so, say they like to golf or something. Hey, how'd your round of golf go the other day? Or, oh, you're gonna go camping this weekend. Like, what are you looking forward to most about that? Maybe just talking about something slightly, unrelated to aviation, but related to other interests of the student, to be able to make them feel, again, make them feel like they're a part of something, make them feel a part of the community, make them feel like you guys have, a good instructor learner relationship. And then you kind of lead off with something like that, and then go into the meat and potatoes of the lesson. Um, so that's the aesthetic side. Lastly, there is excuse me, self actualization. What that is the student's ability to recognize and realize their own potential. And that it takes a little bit to get there, but usually when students will reach that point, um, they can only reach that point when all of the other needs are satisfied. Remember, this is this pyramid works like you got the base and you've got each level, and you have to satisfy the base before you get to the safety and love and belong. You have to satisfy one before you get to the next. Is what I'm trying to say. And self actualization is at the top of that. Um, so when a student does begin to realize their own potential, and they'll continue to develop. And what this kind of looks like is um, they'll start to incorporate an ongoing appreciation for aviation. I remember just even myself after I passed my private pilot, I was starting my instrument training, and I was again, instrument training is a whole new world, and it was a little difficult at first. I'm like, geez, I have much more of an appreciation now for instrument pilots, or people who have to people who fly instrument procedures, fly IFR, or I have much more of an appreciation for weather now. um, so just kind of stuff like that. Another one is a concern for personal growth. Hey, I'm not, I'm having a hard time flying this procedure. Let's go take a look at the approach plate and dive into that a little bit more. Or I'm having a tough time with air traffic control communications. I'm going to go listen to live ATC. Just that general concern for your own personal growth within the pursuit, in this case aviation. um, Another way this is characterized is the self-actualized student is they're able to have more peak performances, so they're able to go out and rock a stage check, or just pass a check ride. um, yeah. So, yeah, that kind of concludes our hierarchy of needs here. And once these are all satisfied, that's when the real learning begins. Students can really go far in their training. Now, kind of on the flip side of that, um, when students are faced with unpleasant situations, they often can fall into some of these defense mechanisms. And the textbook definition of the defense mechanism is it's our subconscious ego protecting reaction to an unpleasant situation. Um, they're going to come up. They always do, and they come up for everyone. So those first two there, denial and repression, those are the main two forms of defense mechanisms. I guess, or the number one, the top two defense mechanisms. So denial is exactly kind of what it sounds like. It's like, no way, like there's no way that happened, or there's no way that I'm not good at landing, or there's no way I'm, yeah, pretty much you're denying the reality, even if it's staring you straight in the face. The next one is repression, and this one's a little bit trickier. There is actually, I'm going to quote a lecture. Todd Shellnut, he's a double-I DP. He's actually the one. He has much better videos about FOIs than I do. But he says this is the brain's way, the brain's filing traumatic or difficult memories into the subconscious, and there's really no way to. There's no good way to really identify that. But if you do identify that as a flight instructor, there's really not a whole lot you can do about it, other than maybe, you know, having the student take a break from flight instruction and maybe going and seeing someone to fix or figure out kind of what's going on. So that's the best I can do for repression. Um, Displacement is the next one. So that's taking out your feelings on someone else. It's like a bad eval, for example. I failed a stage check. I feel very angry about this. I studied, I did blah blah blah. I feel really bad about it. But I walk out of the flight school, I don't seem too upset. But then I go home and I snap at my wife. Um, that would be, taking your anger and frustration from one situation and moving it on to someone else or to something else. And vice versa. The flight student could do that. The flight student, I just go back to golfing because that's what I've been using. Our golfer student, maybe they shot a terrible round the other day and lost $100 to their friend. Uh, they're still upset about that. They might come into the flight that day and just be angry and sarcastic. Yeah, so that's displacement. Rationalization is the next one. So what this is our excuses for a poor behavior or not accomplishing something. So it's like, and we're sold on that. Like I I didn't I didn't pass my test because I was really tired because I had to work late and this and that and blah 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 excuse. I have this reason, just basically making all these excuses for why something didn't happen the way it was supposed to happen. um when really, oh, maybe I could have studied more, but I don't admit that. Another way to think about rationalization is justifying actions that would be otherwise unacceptable. um Flying the wrong airspeeds in the pattern, or not doing everything on a checklist, something like that. And then being sold on, oh, well, the wind was pushing me. Well, you can compensate for the wind, just stuff like that. So rationalization. The next one is fantasy, or daydreaming is pretty much what it is. So you're in, I'm in class, and we're talking about regs today, so or FOIs. You're listening to me talk to you about FOIs, and you're just kind of like, oh, this Mac guy's pretty boring. Um, and you just kind of start looking out the window, an airplane flies by, and you just kind of start thinking about the day that you're walking down the jet bridge and you're a captain for United Airlines. You're on your way to Paris. Um, you're not really, you're taking yourself out of what's going on and thinking about the future and where you want to be. And that ultimately disrupts your learning and inhibits it, because necessarily you're not necessarily sold at the moment on taking the steps that you need in order to achieve your end goal. So it's a lot easier to daydream about it than actually work toward it. So that is fantasy. The C, compensation. So that's emphasizing a positive trait to make up for something that's bad, or you're counterbalancing, I guess, is another way to think about it. You're counterbalancing a perceived weakness with a strength that you have in another area. I I pancaked it on the runway today, but my comms were really good. There's an example of that. So that's compensation. The next one is projection. So this one, it's kind of similar to displacement. So what you're doing is you're putting the blame on someone else for something that happened to you, a poor result. In this case, failed check ride. And maybe I should start using other examples. It's hard for me not to. I've been using the same examples: failed check rides, failed tests, whatever. But a failed check ride. So instead of owning up to it, taking ownership, yeah, I didn't study enough, or I really should have practiced my steep turns more, or I really should have blah blah blah, whatever. Instead of owning it, you place the blame on someone else or something else. Oh, the DPE had it out for me, and I just that's why I failed. Or my instructor was bad, and I didn't learn that right, so that's their fault. And that can happen both ways. I can have a student who goes to a check ride and they could fail that check ride, and I can be like, well, if I'd taught you, like, if you had just learned what I taught you, you would have been fine. I taught you this, even though the student's thinking, no, you didn't. We forgot to talk about turns around a point. We forgot to do an emergency procedure. Just something like that. So what I'm trying to say is it goes both ways. And lastly, there is reaction formation. So that's saying one thing and doing the opposite, or feeling one thing, or saying one thing, doing the opposite. Poor exam score again. This shows up usually in the written exam. You go take your test, you get a score lower than you would have liked. You're upset. Naturally, you're going to be a little upset. Say you got 70%, which is the minimum passing score on FAA written exams. Oh man, I got a 70. This is terrible. I can't believe it. But the first person you see, how'd you do on your test? Well, I got a 70 and it's passing, so whoop-de-doo. you're not actually that chipper and excited about it. You're really disappointed, but you're not showing that. You're not letting on to that. So, um, yeah, that is reaction formation. So these are all of the defense mechanisms that you're going to see in your students. And there's, like I said, you can guard against these if, yeah, you can guard against these. So that pretty much concludes what I have to discuss for now. I went through it pretty quickly, but again, this is more of a way to it augments the aviation instructor's handbook. Chapter two and chapter four. Um, there's also, I can probably link. Actually, I will link the original lecture that I took notes on and got some of this stuff from too as well. Um, but yeah, that covers just that first section of human behavior and communication on the learning process. The next video on this topic, we will start to explore the emotional reactions. So we'll talk about this section, that anxiety, stress, worrying, lack of interest, physical comfort, excuse me, apathy due to inadequate instruction, and then we might even briefly touch on teaching the adult learner. So yeah, that's all I've got. Again, I appreciate the views. I'm doing this for my own good. I am not I'm not perfected at this, obviously, and I'm just hoping to get some feedback, good and bad. If I'm really, I say a lot. if I'm, if there's really something that you didn't understand or I didn't explain it well or I could have explained it more, let me know. And subsequently, if I did anything good here, I would also like to hear that too. So anyway, yeah, I just thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.